Hello and welcome back to the Nourish with Purpose podcast. It's Bailey and I hope you're having a great Wednesday or whenever you're listening to today's episode. I'm really exposing myself these days by visually recording the podcast and uploading it over on YouTube because I feel like I'm always in the exact same attire. And truthfully, I probably rotate between the same 3 shirts every single week. That's because A, they fit well during pregnancy, B, they're very, very comfortable, and C, they're a color that actually makes my face look like it has some life to it. And that's because I'm a spring, or at least I'm pretty sure I'm a spring. I don't really buy in, and I've never gotten my colors done, but that's what I've been told. Anyway, if you are watching over on YouTube, you'll see we got the crib put together this last weekend. It's something that I feel like I have had on my radar for so long of wanting to get done. And I told Nathan, I'm like, let's just do it. He's like, where is your desk gonna go? I'm like, I'll shove it towards the window. It's fine. Let's just get it put together. I am just in nesting mode. And he even said that. He's like, I know you're in nesting mode. Let's just get it put together. And we've got little duck sheets on it. I also have this little duck. You can kind of see it also in the video that Gabby, my friend's mom, actually embroidered or knitted, maybe, for us, and it was just the sweetest little surprise. It's adorable. So that is right now in the crib. Obviously, baby will not be in the crib for a while. We have a little bassinet by our bed, but again, I just wanted to get some things done. The nursery is really almost complete. I just have to move a changing table in here and get that set up, and then we will be good to go. I know I've shared a lot about it, and you will continue to hear about pregnancy because, like I always say, it's the biggest thing happening in my life right now. And there's just so much excitement around it. I am 38 and a half weeks. And truthfully, I say this with a lot of gratitude, but I feel incredible. And I think there is so much that goes into it. And there's so many things that could have happened that were completely out of my control. But truthfully, I feel great. I've just had people ask, so I wanted to put that out there. I've been doing great. Baby's doing great. We had an appointment this morning in Lincoln. And listen to their heartbeat. They are well, they're in a great position, and I just feel so comforted by who we're working with. I think it kind of ebbs and flows, right? When you're like thinking about delivery and creating a birth plan, which I've actually have created. And then my computer died, my brand new computer. So that's awesome. That's something that I was not expecting to happen last week. But my birth plan was on there, so hopefully I can get that transferred over somehow and get that printed off. But today we really just talked about the birth plan, kind of what I want to happen during labor, and I was so pleased with how the midwives approach labor and delivery and just the support that they give to mothers while they're there, and the differences in how they tend to the mother, and even expectations around like different IVs that you'd have to have in, or ports, or just things like that, or if you can eat or drink the whole time that you're in labor, and they do allow for that. So there's just a lot of things I feel like we're really on the same page with, and to be at this stage in pregnancy and just to have that comfort and honestly just that eagerness, I'm like ready to go. Like, let's get this thing going. I'm so excited to deliver. I'm so excited to push myself, and I say that all the time, and if you've talked to me in person, you've probably heard me say that, because there's so much negative that gets put around pregnancy, and I just don't want that to not even just be the case for everyone. But I know I've seen people who are just miserable during pregnancy, and I hate that, and I hate to see that, or have different health issues come up, and it's hard. It's hard when your body is using so much of its power to take care of somebody else. Like, I think we can feel depleted and drained. And so I've honestly been sharing a lot more over on Instagram too about how to support your body, your thyroid, or cravings during pregnancy, just because I think it's really, really big and can make a really, really big difference. Not saying it can completely change your entire pregnancy, but I do think that how we treat our vessel matters in all stages of life. And that's the stage of life I'm in. So it just feels like a natural progression of me and my business to kind of enter into that phase. And I just think too, just by talking to the clients I'm currently working with that are moms, I have so much admiration for moms who really invest time and resources and money into their body and taking care of their body because their kids are seeing that as a result. And there's this client that I was talking to her over the last couple of weeks, and she was like, my daughter had come up to me one day because they've been implementing a protein-rich afternoon snack instead of like a carb-rich protein snack or a carb-rich snack in the afternoons. And she's like, my daughters are like, oh my gosh, Mom, like you seem so much happier. You seem so much happier right now. And it's because she's taking care of her body. And as a direct reflection of her taking care of her body, her daughters are also taking care of their bodies and seeing how much of a difference it makes in their mother's emotional health and commenting on that. Like that just gives me goosebumps to hear stories of that, because truly the health of the family starts with the mother. I know I am not technically I'm a mom now, but in a different sense, right? I'm not actively taking care of another person yet. But if you think about in most traditional households, right, the mom is making the food. They are, creating the schedule. They are probably managing screen time. They are taking their kids places. Like there's so many things that get put on the mother, not saying fathers are not so valuable in the role that they play in a relationship, but it's just so interesting how much, especially nutritionally, that gets put on the mom. And you can't pour from an empty cup. I say that over and over again because you just can't. And something that I've had to remind myself, even when it comes to postpartum, is that it's not selfish to take care of yourself. And as mothers or as women, I think sometimes it is seen as selfish to prioritize a workout versus taking your kid to a sports practice. Like there are sacrifices that have to be made, and I'm 100% aware of that. But I do think that so much of the health of the family is put on the mother. And so to hear clients' testimonials around how them supporting their body, and even just having somebody like me, for example, or any health coach or practitioner to talk to and talk through things with, gives them just that encouragement to continue to do that. Because I'm not here saying that this client now has no symptoms, no negative symptoms, they feel 100% perfect all the time, but there are subtle shifts happening in them that are greatly impacting their family, and her family is recognizing that and complimenting their mother on that. And it just, like I said, it gives me goosebumps because it's the coolest thing. So I think that's just something that I want to tap more into, is just the mother and understanding the value of the mother taking care of herself. And I don't know how my business will shift after I come back from maternity leave, or if it will in the type of clientele that I serve or support, but I just have such a respect for the ways that moms take care of themselves regardless of what's on their plate, because there can be a lot, and it's just really cool to hear stories like that. So I wanted to share that with you today. But outside of that, updates for us, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Not really. I know I talked about the Sabbath and honoring the Sabbath, and that's something I've actively been trying to focus on, specifically around phone usage on my Sundays, and using that time to spend it with family or friends or my husband. And I think it's just a really special time, but I do know it's just something that I actively have to be thinking about, because I responded to a couple emails on Sunday. And again, that's crossing the boundary of the rules, right? The rules kind of that I've set loosely around the Sabbath, not even loosely, but also understanding rules aren't just there to be rules. They're there to kind of keep us in check, right? And so that's just what I'm hoping to do with myself. So that's something I'm actively working on. I never want to give off the impression that I'm doing everything perfect all the time. There's so much room for improvement in my own lifestyle, which is why today I wanted to tap on the foundations, because there are things that we could be doing consistently to support our body without having to invest barely anything. And so I'm going to talk about what they are, why they matter, and how you can begin implementing the foundations. Also, please understand the reason, and I said this on last week's episode, the reason that I might sound preachy or sound very you should do this and passionate about it is because it's what I need to hear, and it's the kick in the butt that I often need, which is why this podcast is so great. And honestly, my job is so great because it holds me accountable to what I tell other people to do. And it can be a good or bad thing, but I am someone who very much so wants to practice what I preach. If I'm going to tell you to do something, I should be able to do that myself and consistently be doing that myself. And so when it comes down to how I'm nourishing my mind, body, and spirit, we're going to get into that segment. If you're new to the podcast or listening, that is a segment I do every single week. And I really encourage you to also reflect on how you're nourishing your mind, body, and spirit right now, understanding that having a balance in all three, or as much of a balance as you can, in all three, is what I define as the true definition of wellness. When we're able to actively be supporting each area, even if it's not perfect, but to have those three areas be a focus each day can make a huge difference. And so I'm very, very, of course, passionate about a lot of things, but specifically the mind, body, and the spirit and how they all work together. So how I'm nourishing my mind. Honestly, I was thinking about this, and this is something I don't often share because it's not like minimal screen time or setting boundaries around technology focused like I try to be a lot of the time, but really laying in bed right now. We've created our bedroom to be, it just feels like a more comforting space. I would say for so long when we moved to our house, we didn't have trim, we didn't have curtains, we didn't have a cute bedspread. Our bedspread was so dingy and gross, like it's honestly embarrassing, just because we have a dog and it's just hard to keep anything white super clean when you have a dog. We also don't have perfectly matching furniture or any of that, but we did make some improvements. We did some like paneling on the wall behind the bed. We hung up a photo, and we have sconces on the side of our bed that also are smart bulbs. And so they will be red light. So last night I was laying in bed with the red light bulbs on, and our dog Luna was at my feet. I was just so cozy in bed and had my red light glasses on and was watching some comfort YouTubers. And I love watching YouTube. It is my favorite platform. Like, I love long form content. I think YouTube is the space to be in if you are watching anything. And so I was just laying in bed watching YouTube, and honestly, that is so refreshing for me. Last night we wrapped up Inflamed to Inspired, that hybrid coaching program I was leading starting in January, and we just finished in March, which was cutting it so close, but I'm so glad that I was able to get through that and not obviously go into deliver during that time. Anyway, I got to wrap up the program with these clients, and I love that time. Like, it gives me so much energy to be in a group of women who are just focusing on themselves and their health, and we got to hear so many wins and progress that they've made. It was incredible. But after a long day, I mean, that wrapped up around 8:30, I think, is when I finished working for the day, and I just needed to brain rot, but in a way that also still felt supportive. And so for me, that really is laying in bed, red lights on, red light glasses on, watching YouTube. How I'm nourishing my body is, it's always consistently movement. I will say my downfall with movement is walking. I need to be so much better about that. I feel like I'm really good about getting in like a 40-minute strength training workout, a 20-minute walk on the treadmill, and then throughout the rest of the day, it's kind of like, well, I've already worked out for an hour today, and then I don't move much just because my job is at a desk. So I really need to prioritize walking way more, but strength training is so key, I think, to having a strong, comfortable pregnancy, and I say that based off of only my own personal experience. So I'm not saying that it'll like, I hesitate giving specific advice around pregnancy because what you're going to hear everyone say is it's so much different for everyone and everybody's body's different. And I wholeheartedly believe that. So I never want to give off the wrong impression. But for me, it has been so big to gain so much strength and actively build muscle during pregnancy and supporting my back. I've shared this before, but when I was 18, I thought that I'd have to have back surgery before I ever carried a child because of my low back injury. And to now be at this point and have no pain in my back, I shouldn't say no, very, very minimal. Like, it is so hit or miss on when it actually happens. It's remarkable in my opinion, and that's not to, again, applaud myself or give myself praise, but that's just to say like what can happen when you build muscle. And I'm so grateful that that has been my experience, and it's just been so big for me. I mentioned last week too, Sydney Cummings' workout. She has a new program, Heat, which I will not be able to complete because I by then should be having a baby. I don't know how long the program is, but if you need to get into something or you need a little kick in the booty to start strength training, that is the program for you. It's one that I've implemented in conjunction with doing a personalized program that I had created for me. I've been adding in her workouts because they're a little bit more cardio focused, a little less rest, and I just always gravitate back towards that type of workout. And then how I am nourishing my spirit. Now, this is one that comes without me saying that there have been some self-doubting thoughts occurring recently, especially when you do your finances from the previous year and you look at your expenses from the previous year. And then I look at my business for the next 2 months, knowing there won't actively be an income. And it's like, holy Toledo, where is the financial support going to come from personally, right? Like, and I will say my husband is very much a supportive role in all of this. But I like to make money. Who doesn't, right? Can I be honest with that? Like, I like to make money. Now, that doesn't mean that is my sole focus and everything that I devote all my energy into is just making money. I care so much more about people than I do about whatever kickback I get from it. And I genuinely mean that. But when you look at things, you're like, wow, 2 months with no income. That's going to be very interesting from a self expectation level, right? Like, that's me expecting something of myself. That's not an expectation from anybody else or anybody else around me. It's pressure I'm putting on my own self. So I can't say that there aren't some self-doubting thoughts, but I've been just communicating with the Lord throughout the day. Honestly, for the last week and a half, I've just been like, I want to be able to put my faith and trust in you to provide. And I say that, like, I want to. I genuinely want to. It's that the hard part is like, but it's not in my control. You know, like I could manipulate and I could control everything around me, but why, right? It's like chasing the wind. Like, why would you do that, right? Like, it's that something that you're striving for, but that you won't actually achieve. Like, I want to believe and trust that he will work his magic. And I just continuously get this voice that is saying, I will provide more for you than you can even imagine. And I've just been getting that reminder every time I come to him. I'm like, I want to believe that you will provide. And I pray that throughout the next 8 weeks, 10 weeks, I'm able to truly just enjoy the season of life that I'm in. And again, it comes back, I will provide more for you than you can even imagine. And hopefully, I feel like a lot of us maybe need to hear that. But for me, it's just like almost an emotional response, like a breakdown cry type of response, because it is so valid. And I could tell people till I'm blue in the face that, yeah, he will provide for you. But to actively believe that for yourself, especially when you know you're going into a season that's going to look different than anything you've ever experienced. And for you, that could be college or a new job, or like losing a job or quitting your job or looking for a new job or staying at home to support your family and be with your kids. Like, there's always so much uncertainty, but to have that voice just in the back of my head, and I truly believe that is Lord communicating with me, because it is like such a powerful emotion that comes over me, and I just hear that same thing, like, I'll provide for you more than you can even imagine. And so it's just allowed me to take a big deep breath. And although, yes, there's of course self-doubting thoughts, there's so much set up to just work out, and it's just that continuous conversation that I think I'm going to need to prioritize with the Lord, because otherwise it's going to be, it'll be hard to take a step back and to truly disconnect. But it's what I really truly believe that I need. And I was also talking to some coaching friends of mine, and knowing that I kind of would love to transition into like the prenatal, pregnancy, postpartum, nutrition type of realm, and work with a lot of women specifically that are in those different stages of life, which is really every woman, because even if you're 18, like, you can still actively prepare your body for pregnancy if that's something that you desire in the future. But they're like, you can't enter into this next time off and disrespect all your boundaries and not support your body and not support your health and then work with women or want to work with women when you return. And I'm like, if that doesn't ring true, because like I said, I'm not here to tell you to do something and then not do it myself. And so that would feel so disconnected, and that would be such a lie. If I was to come back and be like, oh, I feel amazing. All I've done is just rest and eat warm foods. And if I was instead like scrolling on social media 24/7 and overworking myself when I was supposed to be doing nothing, not nothing, but you know what I mean, it wouldn't be genuine. And so I want that to be genuine. So it's that foundation, it's that boundary, it's that expectation that I'm putting on myself to just be so present in the next 10 weeks that are kind of laid out for me. So that is how I'm nourishing my mind, body, and spirit. Again, take some time on your own to reflect on that and see how you're doing in each area and what you're doing to support your body in each area. But we are moving on to the bulk of today's episode, which is the focus on foundations. And the reason why I do believe that the foundations, and I'm going to explain what those are so valuable is because they build the groundwork. So when we're able to bring it back to the basics, no matter how advanced your health regimen is, if these foundational habits are not consistently being done or being practiced, you will not have a firm foundation to build upon. Now, this does not mean, just like when I talk about your mind, body, and spirit, that you have to always be doing these things perfectly and 100%, but they should consciously be a focus until they can be subconsciously a focus, right? Until they are a very integrated, foundational, how many times am I going to say that in this episode, component of your health regimen. The second piece of this is that it allows you to establish healthy rhythms. So this is not something that should take you hours to do each day or feel very overwhelming to start with. These habits should just be that solid framework for supporting any weak organs, minimizing those most persistent or annoying symptoms, and overall holding you accountable to just having grace with yourself along the way. If we want our health journey to truly be a journey, it cannot be something that feels so unattainable that we could not do it forever. It should not be a supplement that we have to take for the rest of our lives in order to reach a certain level of health or to reduce certain symptoms. Not saying those can't be supportive, but those are never, ever, ever the first place that I look to support a client. And then thirdly, is thirdly a word? I don't think so. Third, this is to just dig deeper. So what I'm kind of going to describe to you is the foundations course that I've created. And this is not to pitch this to you. This is not to sell a product to you. This is truly just to show you what the foundations are and help give you a snapshot into what that would look like. But really, there are 8 foundational components, which in the course that I've created, it is 8 modules or 8 weeks of content that guide you and give you the tools to implement the foundations and make them consistent habits. However, I always tell people that this journey is never short and sweet. I don't just work with clients for like a week or two and say, okay, you're good, like good luck, best to you. Although, of course, like if that was what they needed and they just needed a little blurb of support, of course I would do that. But there are so many different levels when you start looking at supporting your body, and they are always changing and evolving. But what I've noticed, even when I strip it back and I look at when I initially started having health issues, and you've heard this story if you've been listening to the podcast, it was the get on some pain medications, get some PT exercises, do a couple rounds of steroid injections, get on a different medication. Didn't work, quit that cold turkey. Then I started doing the Chloe Ting workouts during COVID. I completely cut out carbs and like starchy carbs like breads, pastas, I would say almost completely. And was doing very, very low calorie, tracking my food, something I wouldn't recommend now, but that was that next phase for me. Then the next phase from that was like, oh, I feel really good. I'm going to start strength training heavily. And so I jumped into the Sydney Cummings workout. And then during that time, I was still tracking food, but I was adding in more fats. I was adding in some carbs, and I started to kind of establish the core 4 without even recognizing it, which is the 4 components that I believe make up a very balanced and well-rounded plate. But my relationship with food was still suffering and my body still did not feel 100%. And then I started to, after we got married, I had a lot of emotional stress, thought I had leaky gut. IBS. I thought I had all these issues, and then I cut out dairy, and like it just continued to evolve to now I'm at a place where I feel very, very comfortable in my body, very, very comfortable in my body, honestly, even as it's changed, very comfortable with the food that I'm consuming, and it's really become second nature to do a lot of these foundational components. But that was 4 years in the making, right? So I'm not here to say, oh yeah, here's this quick fix, do this course, 8 weeks, you're going to feel wonderful. Although of course that is always the goal. And even just if you're listening to the podcast, if it is your goal to just feel good, I will very transparently tell you it's not going to happen in 8 weeks, but that doesn't mean you won't notice improvements in 8 weeks. It takes consistency, it takes time, and it takes evolution truly to, see those changes, long-term changes that I know we're all probably have at least one symptom that we would like to see improve. And so from here, from really creating the foundations or building that foundation, you're able to then introduce blood work, additional testing, one-on-one support, accountability, if that's what you would desire, nutritional changes that are specific to your body, right? I can sit here and say you need to be drinking more water, you need to be eating more protein. That's because 95% of the women I work with, those are the two components nutritionally that need to be addressed first. From there, it's like, oh, okay, you're having this symptom. Well, let's make a shift here in your diet. So with your high protein meal, you actually need some carbs because your body's showing there is a deficiency in energy. So we need to be supporting it with carbs. Oh, but you don't have a gallbladder. So fruits and vegetables don't always sit really well. Well, let's make sure that we're doing cooked vegetables, coating them in a lot of good fats, and then see how your body metabolizes that, or how your body feels. And everybody is so different. Like I was just talking to a client about this as well. I have a client who, her and her brother have both had their gallbladder removed. For her, it's the veggies, even when cooked, that really still upset her stomach. For him, it is the fast food, the high protein that really upsets his. And they're both like very different. So for her, she's like, I could eat all these protein sources. My body doesn't have a hard time breaking that down, digesting those. I could even eat fast food and I would feel totally fine. Whereas for him, he'd feel horrible, but he could eat fruits and vegetables all day long and feel incredible. Two exact surgeries, two different people, two different genders, allowing for two different nutritional plans to be in focus. So it's just really interesting how things can change and evolve as you maybe have specific conditions or symptoms. But in general, these foundations really serve to support all areas of your health, and then you can get more nitty gritty. And so I always tell people, if you're not doing the foundations, truly, you have no business doing anything else. And I know that sounds very, very brutal. And, we always are like craving, like, but what if I did like a red light sauna? No, honey. Like if you're not doing the foundations, red light has no place in your routine yet. Okay. All things you can work towards, all things you can integrate. Or, oh, but what about this supplement? My friend is taking it and she's lost X amount of pounds. No, not until you are doing the foundations would I say, okay, let's add in a supplement that your friend is, and I would honestly never recommend a supplement just because somebody else is taking it. You should be taking a supplement because you know there is a deficiency in your body or a specific need in your body that would be supported with that supplement. All of that to say, these are the foundations, okay? So get out a pen and paper if you're curious. The first one is rest. So I would go back and listen to last week's episode if you struggle with this one, because that one was titled, You're Doing Too Much. Most of us are. And so rest is a huge component of this. From there, it goes stress and boundaries. So what are those health supporting habits versus those health hindering habits? Where are boundaries being crossed in your life? Where are you crossing your own boundaries that is overall leading to more stress? And then there's also different modalities in how you can not just manage stress, but actually change how your body physically responds to stress, or even acknowledge how your body responds to stress. The next one is sleep. So we dive into how to gradually increase the amount of sleep that your body needs per night, and also how you can adjust that wake up time in the morning to reflect and support this. After that, it goes into routine. So how do you bookend your day? How do you start your day? How do you end your day? You've heard me say this before. If you're starting your day scrolling on social media before your feet even hit the floor, before you've looked at the sun, you're setting yourself up for failure. Again, if you're doing the same thing before you go to bed and you have every light on in your house and you just spent 3 hours binge watching Netflix and you feel emotionally disconnected from the people around you because you haven't had any conversations with anyone that day, you're setting yourself up for failure. So that how you bookend your day is a huge component there in assessing that. The next foundational component is hydration. So having the ability to calculate how much you need per day and how you can add in trace minerals or minerals to also support hydration. Hydration or water in itself is pretty naked, is what I call it for the most part, unless you're drinking spring water, sometimes well water. Definitely depends if you've ever had your water tested for that mineral count, but most of us need to actively be adding minerals back into our water because our water, especially if you're in city limits, has been cleaned and all those minerals have been stripped and not been added back in. And then protein, again, calculating how much your body specifically needs and ways that you can structure your meals to reflect this and make this a focus without it being like, ugh, like I'm only eating protein and I'm pushing the protein and I'm just tired of that always being a focus. It's much more of a gradual, okay, like if your goal is 80 grams of protein per day, let's take that, divide it by how many meals you eat. Okay, what are some ways we can get in 20 grams of protein each day? So just some subtle adjustments like that is really big. Movement is that next foundational component, regardless of where you're starting, if you're really into strength training or running, or if you're an athlete, or if you really just have the focus on moving your body more. There's a calculation for how you know how many steps you need per day based off of your current activity level without it being like, oh, right now you're only walking 1,500 steps a day. Well, tomorrow let's make that 10,000. Not possible, right? Nothing can be so drastic because it just does not create for consistency. And then the final component of that too, or the piece around movement that I want to talk about is if you have not had nutrition be a focus first, I'm not saying you should stop exercising and only focus on nutrition, but it is an area that really needs some attention for most people. I firmly believe you should be starting with nutrition before you jump into movement, because if you don't have foods in your diet that are supporting energy production and muscle growth, you could work out forever and ever and ever and maybe not see that big of changes, or maybe not see the changes that you want because nutrition is missing. And then finally, the last foundation is support. Who do you have around you to support yourself, or to support you? Who can you support that is around you? Are you ready to get very nitty gritty about blood work and nutritional changes? Or do you feel like you have accountability and support? I would say for most people, blood work is that very natural progression from here, from establishing foundations, or at least working on the foundations and having them be a focus is blood work. Because I will be honest, when I get into blood work consults, there are about, I don't even know. I shouldn't even say, because it's not that everybody is the exact same, but I go through these foundational components with every blood work client that I see before I even talk to them about what showed up in their labs, because if they're not doing the foundations, that is the place that I'm going to have them start right away. Before I even talk about, oh, looks like your liver is carrying some extra stress, or looks like you're very, there's low stomach acid production in your stomach, right? Like, okay, there's patterns of low stomach acid, but at the same time, if you're not drinking water, or if you're not eating protein, or eating 3 meals a day or more, or getting sleep, or managing stress, all these things that are like, yeah, Bailey, we get it, but are we doing it? And that's where I always like to bring that in with clients. And so that's why I come back to the foundations often with clients, either if it's one-on-one or blood work, or if somebody really is just coming up to me as a friend and asking me questions. I don't always want to just give client examples, but that's, I think, the easiest way to kind of explain the importance of these things. So there's kind of a very common thread, and this is just a very general example. I will not say this is a specific example from any specific client, but it's one that I've heard. So I'll have somebody come to me and say, I feel very jittery and anxious, and I felt that way all of last week, and I've noticed that I've been super bloated, especially in the evenings. Okay, so what I do with that client then is I ask them, okay, so have you been eating 3 meals a day or more, right? Have you been having those 3 protein-rich meals and drinking enough water and having maybe some protein-rich snacks to get to that goal? If they say no, Then it's like, okay, well, what time are you eating your last meal? Well, I've been at work until about, 7 o'clock, so probably around like 9:30 p.m. I would say that's probably why you're bloated. You're eating too late or you're eating too close to bedtime, which is why you're probably also waking up feeling bloated or gassy. And then I'll ask them too, even if they have been eating those 3 meals a day, I'll say, well, have you been eating undistracted? Have you set a boundary around your lunchtime so that is time that you are not on your phone, you're not talking to a coworker, you're not working or multitasking, you are truly sitting with yourself, enjoying your food, chewing your food, big component there, chewing your food and identifying how you feel, right? So that question I always come back to is, what does my body need to feel supported right now? And sometimes that means I need more food at the end of a meal, or sometimes it's like, oof, like I haven't even finished my meal, but I'm not very hungry. When you are distracted and there's no boundary around when you choose to eat your food, or if you don't disconnect yourself from the primary stressor, which for me would be my cell phone, and that mealtime, your body's probably going to not respond in the best way, or you're going to become very robotic in how you nourish your body versus actually listening to what your body needs. Another question I would probably ask too is like, what's the first thing you did when you woke up in the morning? That entire week, if you were super jittery and anxious, what did you do, right? Did you decide to get back into old patterns of grabbing your phone, opening up Facebook and scrolling for a while, and then realizing, oh my gosh, I'm going to be late for work, but I just really don't want to go, dreading getting ready, dreading your commute, skipping breakfast, and then getting to work and realizing, oh, well, the only thing in the break room is coffee. Well, let me have a cup of coffee, obviously not having anything protein rich before you had that cup of coffee, leading you to be jittery, right? These are things, this is like a whole combination of things I've heard from clients over the years. It's like so many different stories and client experiences in one that I'm just saying I have seen over and over and over again, which is why you might be like, oh, that sounds very familiar. Oh, that sounds like something I've definitely done in the past. Yeah, probably. Like, this is most people. We are also bio-individual, but at the same time, we have a lot of common traits, which is just always very interesting to see. And then kind of as a next question from there, right, when it comes to their feeling jittery and anxious, well, how much protein was in your breakfast this last week or even today? And if it's like, well, I didn't have time for breakfast because I laid in bed and scrolled, and then I didn't have any time to get up and have breakfast, and there was nothing prepped because I was so stressed and working late at work that I didn't have any food prepped, and then yada yada. You get where I'm going with this. Okay, this is very, very common. This pattern is very, very common. If you relate to any piece of that story or that example, it's very common. And through all of those 4 questions, I can link them back to the foundation. The foundation of, there's some healthy rhythms that we are not focusing on anymore. Or, we're starting to neglect protein a little bit. Or, we're going back to caffeine when we're stressed. We need to manage that stress a little bit different and create a boundary around work so that when you are eating or when you are trying to get out of the office, it's not 9 o'clock p.m. Maybe there's some distractions happening at work that are making your workday longer, like scrolling on your phone or talking to coworkers or sitting and staring at the wall because you're so exhausted, right? That comes back to sleep. I can link all of these back to the foundations, people, which is why I know like some of these examples are like, yeah, that's really advanced. That's really complicated. And then you link it back. You're like, but if I'm not doing this, it means I'm probably not doing this. Or if this symptom is showing up, then I'm probably neglecting this part of my routine. So for example, let's say then, so that's the foundations. That's why this foundations course I think is so, so big. Even if, like I said, you don't go through a foundations course or the course that I've created, totally fine. I'm not here to sell it to you, but write down these foundations and think about how you can support them. Okay, but let's say somebody came to me just to do blood work and they didn't do the foundations course, which is totally fine. I still take clients in that sense as well. But we identified patterns of leaky gut and low stomach acid. I can almost guarantee that if they implemented stress and boundaries, because stress and your emotional state when you're consuming food can alter the modality of your gut and how your body actually breaks down and digests food. Also, if they established healthy morning and evening rhythms that supported their body and supported eating and slowing down eating enough food, praying before meals, giving gratitude, right, would make a huge difference. And then hydration with minerals and protein-rich meals. I could say that with just those 3 changes, probably 50% of their overall worst symptoms would improve. And then the additional 50% to get them to feeling 100% perfect, which I would say would be a goal, of course, for everyone, but is a very, that's a very high expectation. But let's just say roughly that next 50% would come from additional improvements, or of those additional improvements would come from adjusting their diet to be specific to their body's needs. So maybe that would look like minimizing dairy, gluten, or refined sugars for a span of time, really working on building up their gut microbiome, utilizing some supplements, or increasing movement post-meal. Those would be things we could sprinkle in. There's so many more I could have added to that list, but to give them that additional boost. But again, a lot of those foundational components can make a huge difference regardless of what shows up in your labs and regardless of what pattern is identified in your labs or your blood work. A lot of things, like I said, will always come back to the foundations. And I wanted to give just a story because we wrapped up Inflamed to Inspired yesterday, which is that hybrid coaching program. And I had a gal share with me. We do the inflammation assessment within that program because I don't look at blood work for each person that enters into that program. We just do the inflammation assessment. And for blood sugar and insulin systems, her score went down by 14 points in 8 weeks. And that's incredibly significant. And so I had asked her, I'm like, what do you think contributed the most to that? And she was like, probably because I actually identified when I was stressed and I slowed down when I was stressed. I really focused on drinking a lot of water, even during my night shift. And when she would have those really, really sweet cravings, which can be tied to those blood sugar levels, maybe needing a little support, right? If you're having those peaks and valleys, we need to be adding in some more protein and fats. But when she would have those sugary cravings, there was 2 components, and I'm so, so proud of her for this. The first one being she would ask herself, okay, why am I craving something sweet? Is there an emotional tie to it? Am I stressed, or have I not eaten enough protein today to cause me to be wanting something sweet? And then if she asked herself that question and still wanted something sweet because she had been doing those other pieces, maybe she wasn't stressed and she had drank enough water and she did eat enough protein, but she still wanted something sweet, she let herself enjoy that something sweet, knowing that she was doing it out of that conscious decision to enjoy something sweet, right? Like she was making that decision consciously. It wasn't because she was stress eating. It was because she knew she did other things during the day to support her body so she could enjoy that. So it's also so easy to see how that relationship with food goes hand in hand with foundationally supporting your body, right? When you're able to recognize what your body needs and ask yourself what your body needs and slow down enough to actually be present, you can go through that list of, am I eating sweets because I'm stressed? No. Am I eating sweets or do I want to eat something sweet because I'm dehydrated? No, I've drank enough water today. Am I eating this because I haven't enough, oh my goodness, words, that sounded like a tongue twister. Because I haven't had enough protein. Again, like you're going through that list. And then when you realize, oh wait, I've been doing all those things, like, of course, enjoy some food, enjoy something sweet. Like I'm never here to say that sweets are evil and that you need to avoid all these things, when really it's just about crowding them out with positive habits. And just hearing the testimonials to that be so tried and true. It's just the coolest thing. And I can even bring that back to my own personal experiences with this, right? Like when I think back to the early weeks of pregnancy, which this is where, like, if you are pregnant right now, even the foundations, right? They're not maybe pregnancy specific. They're still so crucial, because when I think about weeks 6 through 7 or 7 through 9, when I would literally take 5 to 6 hour naps midday, like totally out of the norm for me, or I would wake up and I would want some cereal or something, or I wouldn't want to eat anything at all. And then I would eat something and it would all come right back up, right? I was not utilizing the foundations and I was not coming back to what my body needed, and I wasn't being aware of what my body needed. Specifically when it came to protein, right? I just am so passionate about this piece because when you go to most doctors, I'm not saying doctors, but like when you're pregnant and you go for that first appointment, they're going to say, even if it's crackers, just keep them on your bedside if you need something. And I'm like, no. Like, we have to stop giving that advice because that is probably why most women feel like turd. Either it's because their body can't actually methylate folate and that's why they feel like turd because they eat crackers, which is a whole different conversation, or it's because that's not supporting their body. I mean, like, truly, what nourishment are you getting from a cracker? I get if you can't keep anything down, but protein in whatever form you can get that in. For me, it was honestly eggs. I know for most people, it's like a Greek yogurt or a smoothie, something that you can sip on, but is so high in protein. And I didn't do that for the first week and a half or 2 weeks. I'm like, I just don't want to eat anything. I'm going to work out like I had been doing prior to pregnancy. I'm going to work out before I eat anything and then eat afterwards. No. Bad idea. Everything always came back up. So I finally learned like protein as soon as I wake up, protein as soon as I get done with my workout. Having that structure was huge for me and huge for how I felt. That's foundational, people. Like, I should have known that. Same with hydration. Like, I craved chips like it's nobody's business. The Good Thins, I think is what they're called. They're like the healthier version of Pringles, or even like some kettle cooked chips. And again, I'm not saying we can't give into these intense cravings or desire things like that. But for me, it was like, well, I'm not going to eat anything all afternoon and then I'm going to have chips. Like, that seemed very not normal for me. Like, I'm typically a protein pusher. And so for that to be what I craved, I didn't understand like, that craving in itself means that I need water. And I need water with minerals. I can't just be having average tap water. Like, I need some electrolytes. My body's not getting enough hydration. Foundational. Again, we're coming back to the foundations. And I'm somebody who, like I said, my health journey's evolved over the last 5+ years. And I still, as soon as I entered into pregnancy, did not honor some of these foundational components. And that goes for any stage of life that you're at. And so just having that evaluation and being really honest with yourself around like, am I actually doing these things? Because most of us, unfortunately, are not. And that is just at no fault really to you, especially if you like immerse yourself in the health and wellness space. There's so many advanced protocols that people are going to push on you. Like, get a red light sauna, get a grounding mat. You need to be changing your toothpaste to be fluoride free and using clean skincare products and cooking on cast iron and going to the chiropractor or getting a massage or doing acupuncture or getting a personal trainer or taking this specific supplement because most people are deficient in it, which could be true for you, but you don't know that 100%. Again, all these like fluffy things that in their own sense are so valuable, but if you're not supporting your body with these 8 components, I really don't think you're doing your body justice, and you're not really helping out your chiropractors, your PTs, your massage therapists, your just any of those components. Like, you're not really helping them out either, unfortunately, because they're probably not asking you, like, what does nutrition look like? How much protein are you eating? Are you drinking enough water? I know when I've gotten massages in the past, it was like, make sure you drink a lot of water after your massage because your body's going to actively be kind of detoxing. We worked a lot of kinks out or a lot of knots out, so make sure you drink enough. And that's all they'll hear. But like, what if you were always drinking enough water? It would be something that would be no problem, and your body would probably not be so sore the next day, or you would notice you still have energy to go do something after your massage. So just help each other out and help yourself out, because like I said, these are things God has given us and they're very foundational. I said that word probably the 100th time. But they're basic, and it seems silly to go back to the basics. But even that example I was giving from that Inflamed to Inspired client that I wrapped up with yesterday, is she was like, kind of giggled. She's like, it's things that like, I should know this. I should be doing this. But the truth is most of us aren't. And that's why I have to record a podcast and just hone in on the foundations and talk about what you can do to support the foundations, because yeah, it's silly. It's silly that we have to put such a focus on such free and easy and accessible things. But like I said, if we're not doing it, we're not able to support other areas of our body that are maybe more advanced, like getting on a supplement protocol or doing red light therapy. Those are great things. You really need to come back to the foundations first before you add in the fluff, okay? So what I'm going to do in the description of today's episode, you'll be able to find the link to the Foundations course, which really gives you a deep dive into why this course was created and the intention behind this course. Truly, it's because I had been seeing the same symptoms, the same patterns show up in people, and a lack of these 8 things also show up within people. Before we would even get to more advanced protocols, these things needed to be addressed. So it's really giving you that starting step. It's giving you an advantage. It's giving you a step up to have foundations to focus on first. And then you can enter into blood work or coaching or support or getting a personal trainer or going to the chiropractor, massage therapist, getting in the red light sauna, like not just saying, okay, do this course so then you can work with me. Because you know me by now. If you've been listening, I'm not a salesy person. I'm not here to push anything, like I've said 100,000 times, but truly just to give your body support on a foundational level. And I just think that it's just something that I think is so valuable. Of course, which is why I've dedicated time towards creating a course around it. But what comes in that is 8 exclusive podcasts around each of those areas. You get I think 40-page reflection guide. So each week you are creating the vision for what you want things to look like, and you are always reflecting on the goals around that vision. It comes back to so much of that self-reflection, asking yourself, what do you really, really want? What changes do you really, really want to see? Because if you're not always being reminded around the changes that you are working on improving or that the changes that you want to see, it can be hard to stay motivated, especially when this is a self-paced course and it requires discipline on your part to complete a course like this. You also then get automatically eligible for blood work consults. I'm returning from my maternity leave mid-May, and things are pretty booked, and especially because my time will be limited as a mom. But I want to serve you and support you if that is something that you desire for yourself. So you obviously automatically get eligibility for that, and I will make space for you to see what's happening on the blood work front, because that next step after we get those foundations established is really big and really beneficial and has made a huge difference in my own health and how I support my body, specifically my body, and how I take supplements or eat different foods or listen to cravings. And it's helped so many people that I've also worked with. So if you have questions, of course, reach out to me. If you have questions about today's episode, comments, concerns, there is actually an area on Spotify where you can leave comments. So leave something fun. Let me know that you completed this obviously podcast episode, and let me know what foundational component you are going to put your energy into in this next week. I'm so interested to hear and would love to support you along the way and encourage you. So with that, let's go ahead and close today's episode in prayer. So dear Lord, just thank you so much for the change in season, that we're able to enter into a new month full of so much energy and excitement and anticipation and goals that we maybe all have for ourselves, or things that we're hoping to evolve from this month. Lord, I pray for those trying to conceive right now, or those that are awaiting and praying for a positive result from a pregnancy test, that you just put your hand over those people and you just give them comfort regardless of the outcome that comes each month, that they just continue to feel encouraged and just supported by those around them. As challenging as this journey can be for some people, and as overwhelming this journey can be for some people, I just pray for your guidance in their journey with all of it, and that they just see your hand in everything that happens as each week, each day, each month goes by. I also pray for a healthy birth for myself and those around me that are also pregnant, and that experience is just something that is so remarkable and wonderful and allows us to be and feel so close to our spouse or our partner and our baby and our babies, and that everything just goes well. And I just pray for continued healthy pregnancies for the girls and the women around me. I also pray for SS, and that her and her boyfriend's relationship just begins to flourish as they prepare to welcome a baby into the world, and that they're able to work together as a team to best support their family and their child. I also pray for patience for all of us to just have patience with either projects, the people we work with, the people we're close to, or our jobs, and that we are just forgiving and we're generous and we're kind to those around us. And finally, I pray for NN and just for positive results to come from her doctor's appointment and all the checkups that she has been going through. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. All right, so if you're interested in following along with my life outside of the podcast, you can find me at Nourish with Bailey on Instagram. It's Bailey Seaton on anything else. Again, the information and everything about the Foundations course is linked in the description of today's episode, so check that out. That will be your best way to start supporting your body as I'm on maternity leave, so then I can hopefully support you if that's something you're looking for as I return, or overall just supporting your system. Of course, that is the number one most important piece to me, is that you are able to independently support your body and just feel and notice changes in your own health. Also, if you ever want to get in contact with me, I will be on, like I said, taking a break probably on social media and everything else, but reach out to me still on Instagram or Facebook or through email. You're going to get an automated response from me starting today. That will just give you a little blurb of why I maybe don't respond. But again, I'm still going to try to be a little active, but still enjoy and be very present in this next season of life. So have some grace with me, but of course, I will try to get back to you if you ever reach out to me. I'm just so grateful for the podcast and hope to continue to be back each week, not live, but you know what I mean, and continue to just give you something to listen to. And hopefully, of course, you leave each podcast episode feeling encouraged and inspired to take your whole body health into your own hands. So with that, I will talk to you again next Wednesday. Bye.